of victory and the agony of defeat.
Madison, great ball around the corner, Petticini, he beats them all! Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle, Sharks coming through, none of them can hold him!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Tip Sheet Podcast. As always, I'm your host John, also known as 4020. Joining me to preview all of the upcoming action on the weekend for what should be round 12 is my good mate Sixties. Just confirming, mate, we are in round 12. I'm not going crazy. Yes, round 12. The dirty dozen for the Parramatta Eels here. And yeah, big fella. It's going to be, I'm looking out my window, it looks like it's going to be a wet weekend for the Blue and Gold. Taking on arch rivals, the Manly Warringah Seagulls, in the NRL, in the New South Wales Cup, and in the Jersey Flegg. Which is really weird in the Jersey Flegg.
Yeah, 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, you don't see that too often. That makeup game in the Global Bye last week, the old back-to-backs. Usually you only see that from the regular season to the finals last round, right? And the seeding matchups. But how you doing, mate? How you holding up with this blustery, wintry, cold weather as we gear up for that big Friday night showing with Stephen Edge and the pre-game show?
Mate, didn't stop me from getting to training today. Mm-hmm. So the last full session with Captain's Run tomorrow, and just looking at the boys go through their paces, as you say, wet conditions, even like for training. It was a bit damp up there at Kellyville this morning. John, look, I guess we have to be prepared for the similar conditions in 2 days' time. I think the forecast says that this rain is going to continue. Now, we should mention right off the bat that there is talk that the New South Wales Cup will have a venue change.
Yep.
And look, it hasn't been finalised as yet, but it could end up being up at Kellyville on Friday night. So, unfortunately, that's it. Look, it might not be a clash for people who want to go and watch that if and when it's confirmed. They'd probably be able to go and watch it and then go home and watch the game on TV. For you and I, when we're out there at Para Leagues before the game with our podcast, and then being there in the stadium for the game, that makes it impossible for us to cover. We will, of course, keep an eye on the scores as they come in, and hopefully be able to update that either live at the club or in our instant reaction podcast after the first grade game. And we should also mention, even though we are going to talk about it in a moment with all the three previews, the Jersey Flegg are scheduled to play at Kellyville at the Centre of Excellence on Saturday. So people have a chance to get out there and enjoy the new stand and facilities and the new field that they're going to be playing on there. John, as usual, taking care of a little bit of business, which is, of course, no matter what platform you're watching or listening to this on, if you can give it a like and subscribe, if you can throw in a comment there as well, all of that helps the metrics, helps to get the podcast out there to as many people as possible. We should also thank our sponsors because without them, this wouldn't be possible. So our thanks to Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, and also to Parramatta Leagues Club, the home of the Eels. And just a reminder too about Parramatta Leagues Club for the match against the Panthers, which is coming up next round. It's an away game. They have a function there in Sturlows, which is our home at Parramatta Leagues Club this year. And it goes from 1:30 to 3:30 with the kickoff at 4:05. Lots of legend players that Jim Sarantinos will be talking with, food available, prizes available, limited tickets. They're only $30 for the event. So if you want to get to that, you actually have to go to the Eels shop. So if you go to the Eels shop, you will see the availability to buy tickets to that. Also want to mention the big function, the long lunch for the Eels Foundation, which is taking place on Friday, the 13th of June. Great event that's there. I'll just read through some of the people that will be involved. So you'll get to hear from legends like Peter Sterling, Nathan Ironmar, Steve Ella, Peter Wynn, Nathan Kalis, and others for a start. Then you've got the current football people there. Jason Riles, Nathan Brown, and head of football Mark O'Neill. So again, it's a matter of going to the Eels shop there, and you go to the event for the long lunch, the Legends long lunch, and all money raised going towards the Eels Foundation, which is a great cause there. So keep those things in mind. I know people love to be able to meet some of the legends of the past and also be able to hear what's happening around the club. Two great events for that. But John, most importantly, not forgetting us. We're on at Parramatta Leagues Club before the big game, 5:30 p.m. start, and wait for it, Stephen Edge. So really looking forward to catching up with the former captain, the premiership winning captain.
Captaining up with the former captain.
Catching up with the captain.
Not captaining up with the former captain. Yeah.
So he'll be there. And Edgy's always got great anecdotes and great observations. And I know people enjoy meeting him, grabbing a few photos. So he's there with us from 5:30 till roughly about 6:15, something like that. So make sure you're there in Sturlo's, in Parramatta Leagues Club from 5:30 on Friday this week before the big game against Manly. So, John, now with all of that out of the way, if we can get on with the preview, starting with Jersey Flegg.
Oh, no, not the Jersey
Flegg.
No,
that's right. We do have breaking news.
TCT Tradition Tip Sheet Show legend. Yeah, we're all running a bit loose right now. But the Tip Sheet Show legend of pertinent news breaking after a recording continues. We've known about this one for a while, fellas and 60s. Back when the Daily Telegraph initially broke the story, it feels like months ago. I think it was on the back of maybe Joe Ofangahi starting to leave. But the club has been in the works with these re-signings, William Penasini, Tony Mattielli, Ronald Volkman, and Sam Tuivasa. So the club has formalised those contracts now and made it official. 1-year extensions for Will, Ronald, and Tony. 2 years for Sam Tuivasa there, 60. So nothing long term, but the Eels retaining a quartet of their young players there.
John, I actually think the Will Penasini one is longer than a year, and I think that was going to be corrected. I think it might be to 28.
It was initially reported back when the Daily Telegraph spoke about it as a long-term re-signing. How's the club phrased it in the presser for Will?
And hasn't been updated.
No, it hasn't been. Will had the player option to exercise, which I believe he had exercised for 2026. So if there is an extension, that would be beyond the player option. So as you've said, maybe it is to the end of 2028, which will put it in line with what was originally reported. But look, Volkman and Mattielli, a couple of young players there. We've seen both make their club debuts and Tony make his NRL debut. And they're going to be pieces of the depth moving forwards and a chance to earn a longer-term extension on the back of another season under their belt at the club 60s. While Sam and Will, we've spoken about Will and people being a little bit polarised on his form. I still think you look at him and you see a young centre that maybe he's not going to be a megastar in the centres, but he's certainly got the potential to be a very good player still in the NRL. And it looks like the club are buying into that. And Sam, well, he could be anything in the front row. And that's the player I probably would have liked to have seen a 3-year extension if possible, but 2 years still gives him a chance to really come into his own as an Eel and then re-up there from that point with the club.
Yeah, now it might be, maybe it's not 2028, it might be 27, but I just know that it's not the end of 26 because I'm sure it's further than 26. But anyway, just watch that because I think the club will make an amendment to that with the date for Will Penasini. So I'm pretty sure it's a bit longer than to the end of 26. So
of course, that's the internal retentions. Your phone was blowing up today, mate. Why?
Well, as soon as that news broke about Lachlan Galvin likely to have played his last game for the Tigers, the phone blew up, text messages, notifications about DMs on the social accounts. My apologies not being able to get back to people, or maybe just not saying too much. Well, the reason I'm not saying too much is, nothing's really been confirmed. I remain bullish on the fact that he will be at the Eels. But I say that with also throwing in there that nothing ever surprises me in rugby league. But as you know, John, the sort of messaging that I was receiving for a long time now was that Galvin would be at Parramatta from 2026 onwards. Now, I guess the only thing is that now going to be expedited to this year? Are the Bulldogs entering this as a genuine chance? You know what? Really, I hadn't received any messaging from anyone in relation to the Bulldogs, other than people reacting to media reports about it. So I've been
mostly been NRL 360 than printed media. Not to say that there hasn't been articles about it, but it feels like a lot of the talk has been driven on the talk show.
Yes. I haven't. And sorry, I'm just doing a quick answer there to someone who.
So
was
one of those many text messages that's beeping the phone.
Yeah, just so I'm recording at the moment. So yes, it's been one of those days today, John. We can't. We remain positive about Galvin joining the Eels because it wasn't so much. It wasn't a case of the Eels going to Galvin in any of this. It's just been what I understand to be a long-term ambition that he's had, and I think if the signing comes on the back of that, that's the sort of signing that I do want to see. Like, someone that just wants to be at the club. Grew up as a supporter, wants to be at the club, and I have faith in the people who have been messaging me about that, and I need to stress that this isn't people connected with the club in the way that you might be thinking. I'm talking about people. No, I can't even go into the people that message me, but it's not. This isn't from people inside the club or anything like that, because, as we know, the club's never been in a position to talk to Galvin or his manager because he's been under contract. And in fact, on the one occasion that I did ask a club representative about this, the answer was, we can't talk to someone who's under contract, Craig. So it was simple as that. That was the line that the club was using. So I have to respect that and stick to that being the case. But I'm pretty bullish based on the information that had been passed on to me for some period of time now. So we've got that news there, John, and we should also mention as well that the New South Wales women's State of Origin team for Game 3 has been announced, and we have the star Eels players again being selected in Abby Church and Kennedy Cherrington, which is
unchanged lineup for the
fully
Bulls.
expected.
I'm stunned. 60s. Imagine not changing a winning lineup like that. Crazy. John Strange not doing strange things, so not living up to his name there. Common sense, and hopefully they can go out with a series sweep. But regardless of the result, now the only major focus will be for them to get through unscathed and get back into that Parramatta Eels NRLW preseason.
Yes. So and a shout out to the match this week is Junior Paulo's 250th first grade game.
There you go. It wasn't there on the 10 was Tuesday post initially, so the club obviously amending that and getting on top of it. So 250 is a huge milestone for the big man. That's a big one.
Yes. So there was. I watched the presser today with Junior. So I think Junior was put forward. I think Sean Russell was as well. I left after Junior's presser there and managed to grab a few words with him after he finished up and asked him about the 250th because I wasn't aware that it was his 250, and he said, yeah, but he said, look, and it was this is pretty straightforward. This is just him in casual conversation. He just said, look, that's great, the 250. He said, but I'm not thinking about what that means to me. We've got to get a win. We just got to get a win, and that's just going to be his focus. So, and we had a bit of a chat about the difference now with training up there compared to what it was like training at Richie Benno Oval, and he said, well, it wasn't much better as well when they trained on that small field out the back of the stadium at Pertex Stadium when it was there. And I did say, well, at least you had showers and all of that at the facility, not like you had at Richie Benno Oval. So
that's a far cry from Richie Benno, yeah.
The club has come a long way. It's it's at times it's felt like it's taken forever to get to this point, but it's a fine facility up there at Kellyville, and I'm sure people will enjoy visiting it. And when it's ready for people to come in and have a look at not just the centre itself, and they've got an Eels shop there which is open. They've got they're still working on their memorabilia stuff, their like mini museum that they have there, and all the historical items from the Eels. So they're working on all that sort of stuff. And it won't be long before they'll be inviting the public to come in and have a look at all of that. So, but the Eels, they've got the facility there now, the players, and it's just a quantum leap from where they were before. But anyway, let's get on with the preview, mate, because we've got 3 grades to get through as usual, and we'd like to be able to do a bit of justice to them in all of the matches in this preview.
Yeah, we start with the Jersey Flegg, which chronologically is being played last on Saturday, 1:00 p.m. out of Kellyville Park, their second game at that venue, and they might be joined by their senior brethren in the Cup, as you mentioned, 60s on Friday night, but the Flegg there on Saturday, coming off a game where they beat Manly 24-16 in that catch-up round in the bye last week. So both teams have a good feeling for each other. You don't get to play each other back-to-back very often. Eels with a few changes, though. At fullback, they get Bradley Avery back with Arpitidal being called up into the New South Wales Cup. Muhammad Alamadine and Dakota Kakoya are on the wings. Tavaka Palu will work the left centre position with Will Shears in the right, if I'm not mistaken. Lorenzo Talatino gets called back into the starting team after playing dummy half off the bench last week. He'll partner Joshua Lynn in the halves, 6 and 7 right there. Tyrese Lakini working in the front row once again, being back row most of the season, 60s, but showing that usefulness and utility in the forward pack. He'll partner... this is tricky here. He'll partner, it was Damascus Nemia, who is now absent from the New South Wales Rugby League Match Centre, but he'll partner the big steal right there with Paddy Spence starting at dummy half. You've got Dom Destratus and Will Lewis on the edges, Saxon Pryke at lock forward. Then on the interchange, Jack Hudson will be the dummy half utility. Big Isaac Jim leads a trio of SG Ball graduates alongside Tom Summer and Josiah Funa Ayuda. Elijah Shane Tapa'u, one of the SG Ball brethren there, he'll be the 18th man. And just looking at the seedings now, because Eels got back into the top 4 on the back of that win against Manly. Yeah, they're in 4th place, chasing the top of the table Panthers by just 2 points. And then the Seagulls have slumped down to second last, only ahead of the Fiji Silktails on points differential right now.
Yeah, so... John, you'd like to think that, first of all, the Eels are going to be too strong for Manly again this week. A little bit closer than they would have liked last week, I'm sure.
Yep.
And the conditions probably might lend towards it being closer than it might be on a dry track. but it's good to see some of the players returning. Good to see some of the better, not better, but some of the players from the SG ball that have been elevated to get a run in first grade, in the Jersey Flegg.
Getting ahead of yourself there, mate.
But look, I'm really looking forward to getting out there to watch a match at the venue. I've seen plenty of training over the years on the venue up there. We've seen lower grade and junior rep games played there before the grandstand was built. But being able to watch a game with the view and the comfort that there will be now exists up there at Kellyville, I'm really looking forward to that, mate. I'm looking forward to being able to blog from up there. It's it promises to be a great day, and I'm sure even though they've already christened the ground way back, what was it, about 5-6 weeks ago, something like that, when it was the final round of junior reps. Did they actually open the day, the Jersey Flegg?
I think they might have. Yeah, it was reverse chronological. They opened up for the Fiala and Gale, I believe.
Yes, and they had a win there.
They won. Yeah, at least the Fiala lost. Natasha Gale won on the day.
Yeah, so it's not the first time that they played there. But look, just looking at the team, we spoke about this on Tuesday. Lorenzo Talatina spent a bit of time at dummy half in last week's win. He's now selected in the halves here. So that's an interesting inclusion. And of course, that comes about with the elevation of Matthew Hunter to New South Wales Cup. And I'm not sure who gets the C next to their name now with Matthew Hunter's elevation. But the other, and it's what's interesting too is Will Lewis really seems to have locked down that edge position.
Yep.
And, Will had some injuries over at different periods over the last couple of years. So it's good to see that he's now clear of that as an issue. And he is a very strong running edge player. He's one of those players that I think from memory he was playing a bit of centre as well in the SG ball. Was that right? Is that where he was, that he played a bit of centre and edge forward back then, John? Or is my memory,
mostly back row. He might have spotlighted in the centres a little bit. I know that Dom did the same. I did a similar thing as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was mostly in the back row, but maybe he had a few games in the centres.
Yeah, I just had it in the back of my mind. My apologies if I've given a bum steer there with that. The other interesting selection is Jack Hudson off the interchange. Now, whether that relates to him being out recently with injury and so this is sort of easing back in, I'm not too sure. But he's a quality player off the interchange. And but what we also know is that Paddy Spence he's been this is what, about Paddy's maybe his third year in Jersey Flegg. So
I think third year.
Yeah. So he's very experienced in this grade, and obviously they value that experience from Paddy. I think when we first saw Paddy was playing fullback in Harold Matts, so he's played. I think he's played fullback. He's played in the centres. He might have played in the halves. He's played dummy half. He's played lock. That's quite a lot of versatility for Pat. So, John, all we can do is, I think, tip a win in this one.
Yeah, the Eels should be firm favourites here. I know it was a close game between the two teams last week, with the Eels being down by as much as 10 points into the second half.
Yeah.
But I think they're a team that are ascending again. I say they've been ascending. They've been one of the top teams in the competition this year, but they had that little trough where they were hit by injuries and promotions to the New South Wales Cup. That's now been offset by the rise and recruitment and development of those SG Ball graduates. And I think that as they start to get a foothold in the team, you're going to see this team sort of go from that plateau that they're on now and start going up again. And I think it starts with this back-to-back, this doubleheader against the Manly Seagulls across the 2 weeks, and they should win and win solidly in this one.
Yeah, I'm expecting that. Okay, that now takes us to the New South Wales Cup game. And again, some interesting selections there. We've got players returning from injury as well. We've got players that are now out with injury. So, yes, well, let's dig into the team list there, John.
Yeah, third-placed Eels, they climbed back into the top 8 last week with their win against Newcastle. And they're taking on the 10th place Manly Warringah Seagulls, who are 10 out of 13, so 4th last in this one, just outside the 8th though. And the Eels, like you said, give it 1 sec. We'll let that ring through.
I'll let it ring through. Keep going, John.
Yeah. So the Eels, as you said, 60s with some reinforcements and also some losses this week. But primarily here we got Joash Papali named at fullback, and we got some speculation about his status this week, as we mentioned on the news podcast on Tuesday night. But named in the fullback role here, Jake Tungor and Samuel Luizu are on the wings. Araz Namva and Richard Penasini are in the centres. As you mentioned, 60s, Matthew Hunter in the halves at 5'8", with Ronald Volkman at number 7. You've got Wiramu Greg and Joey Lussick alongside Tony Mattelli in the front row. Bryce Cartwright, Will Latu and Charlie Geimer in the back row. Brendan Hands, Brock Parker and Arpa Twiddle alongside Kane Kalachi are on the interchange. And they're taking on a Seagulls outfit. There's a bit of NRL experience here. Clayton Farlaw, Brandon Wakeham. Who else we got here? No NRL experience, but former Eels prospect Zadis Moanga Tutia doing all right there. Aaron Shoop's in the back row these days. Michael Cheekham's captain the team on the edge. So, yeah, they've got a few NRL players there, but not the most dynamic outfit, although they did account for the Parramatta Eels earlier this year.
Yes, that was, let's be honest, that was an abysmal game.
Probably their worst effort of the season. They were disappointed against the Bulldogs a fortnight ago, 60s, in that window before half-time. But as a totality of their body of work, the round 4 game against the Seagulls, they were just awful. Yeah,
there were a lot of, to be fair, against the Bulldogs, there were a lot of disruptions, a lot of changes on the road out to Tamworth with it as well. A bit of a focus on saving people for first grade, I think, in that week. And, so I think we go with Manly as being the standout bludger of a game from earlier this season. I'm expecting better this week, John, but, there's still a lot of disruptions that have taken place. But I think you have to look at, there's a lot of strength in the forward pack in this New South Wales Cup team. It's got experience. It's got some talent, some rising talent there. I think the pack alone gets the edge in this game, but the backs, well, you've seen Arpa Twiddle included on the interchange. It's good to see him back from injury, and I think a lot of people have noted that he's arguably, when he's been on the field this year, because he has had that injury, has shown himself to be a player of potential. Had a really good pre-season, got to experience part of the pre-season with the NRL. He was overcoming an injury last year. I think that was a reason why he joined the pre-season a little bit late. Of course, we've had the rumours around Joash being included in the first grade team, so maybe it's a case of seeing Arpa coming in to fullback, and then there'll be another change to the bench there. But looking at it, you've got Araz and Richard as rising young centres and have done their job quite well.
Araz, Richie's obviously had a bit of hype around him being the younger brother of Will and being very talented in his own right, but Araz has done a really good job and sort of flying under the radar right now, being very solid in the New South Wales Cup.
And they've been able to call on a bit of experience from Ron Massey Cup in Samuel Luizio. Now, Samuel had the one game in NRL way back in the COVID time when BA debuted. BA debuted a number of players in the last round of the season, and Samuel got an NRL debut then, and he went and spent. He linked with the West Tigers, but moved on by the end of the pre-season before this one. But he's back. He's done the job when he's been called up. He's certainly been a try scorer on his games in New South Wales Cup this year. John, look, I think this will be a game that will be won in the forwards, and the backs are going to enjoy playing off the platform that the forwards lay in this one. Keep your eye on. You've got Tony Matteelli coming back from his first grade debut last week. As I said, I don't see that as a demotion or anything like that. It was really, I think, last week was a good opportunity to debut Tony, give him a taste of first grade. Back to New South Wales Cup, let that development continue to occur. Will Latu, we've noted Will as someone who has that potential to maybe get a debut at some stage, maybe later in the season. Look, it might not happen. We don't know, but I think he's got the potential to be a first grade player. So, and of course they've got Charlie Guymer there as well, and
yes.
And he had a cracking game last week.
It was his best performance of the season by some margin. He looked very good against Newcastle.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And look, to be fair to Bryce Cartwright, he hasn't had a great season, but last week he created a lot of opportunities. Some of them wasn't his fault that they didn't lead to tries, because he was creating something out of nothing in a couple of instances. So hopefully he's got that return to form happening right at the moment. But I think the Eels will be too strong for Manly in this one, John.
I want to hope so. I think that the Eels righted the ship last week against Newcastle. That Newcastle team, despite their struggles on the ladder, looked a lot better on paper than their results suggested. They had a lot of NRL experience, a lot of very good young players there as well. And the Eels pretty comfortably eased past them 30-10. When these two teams met back in round 4, the Seagulls had the benefit of players like Jake Arthur in the sort of box seat steering around the park. And because of the injuries and origin call-ups impacting both teams, he is now in first grade this week, which is a boost to the reserve grade chances. And I think that you want to hope they get business done here, 60s. I know that the Seagulls certainly still have some talent in this team and some NRL experience, but looking at this player for player, position for position, the Eels should win this one, regardless of whether they're playing at Combank or at Kellyville Park.
Yes. Okay, and that takes us to the big game, John.
Yes, the main event, 8 o'clock p.m. out on Friday night, Combank Stadium. The return fixture from that round 4 clash at Four Pines, where the Eels were done in by the Seagulls, but despite their offensive struggles on the day, they nearly had a Sean Russell hat-trick and could have scored 3, 4, 5 tries maybe, with a little bit more finesse in the finishing of their passes. And while the Eagles did win that game, it felt like that was one of the early results that suggested the Eels weren't as bad as their ladder position indicated, or at least had the potential to maybe climb higher. And now these two teams meet again, going for the Manly team very briefly. Unfortunately, not as many origin call-ups as we would have liked, 60s. We mentioned that on Team West Tuesday on the news podcast. But at fullback and their captain, Tommy Tebojevic, Jason Saab will work the right sideline, I believe, with Lehigh Hapawadi on the left. Tolotau Kula and Ruben Garrick are their centre pairings there. Luke Brooks and Jake Arthur, the 6 and 7. Ethan Bullymore in the middle this week after playing on the edges at various points this season. He partners CSI Takiaho, Jake Simpkin at dummy half. Hamoli Olakawatu, another one of those Blues aspirational players in the extended squad, but not part of that game day 17+1. You got Ben Tavovic on the other edge, Jas Tavanga, their small ball lock forward. Lachlan Croker, Corey Waddell, Nathan Brown, and Matthew Lodge in the interchange rotation there. Lodge caught into the team on the back of that nasty concussion to Jake Tebojevic, who was also absent, obviously. Cat 1, so he's in a mandatory 11-day stand-down, I believe it is. And extend the roster. Some players we talked about in the New South Wales Cup, Failo'o, Wakeham, Tommy Talau, not named in the Cup, but there was an absent jersey there, so he could be a Cup player there. Michael Cheekham and Caleb Navale. And then for the Parramatta Eels 60s, we went through this on Team List Tuesday, but we'll go for it one more time. Isaiah Young at fullback, Sean Russell on what I believe will be the right wing. I don't see why they would move Josh Adokar out of his preferred left wing position. He being Adokar, will partner Jordan Samrani down the left, we believe, with Will Penasini working with Sean Russell on the right. That could be subject to change. Will has played on the left this year, so I don't know if they want to switch things up to accommodate Jordan's temporary stay in the centres. But I would assume that Jordan's on the left. You got Dylan Brown and Dean Hawkins in the halves. Jack Williams back into the front row this week after spending some time on the edge against the Knights. He'll partner his temporary captain in Junior Barlaw, who takes the C with Mitchell Moses out. Riley Smith, a dummy half. He looks to have overcome any suspicions of a calf strain or a calf cork. I don't know what was going on there, mate, but he looks to be good for this clash, which is huge. Kelma Tuolangi returns.
It was a cork.
It was a cork. Kelma Tuolangi returns from his 3-game suspension for contact to the head against the Tigers. He'll slot back into the edge on the right, meeting his former employees in the Manly Seagulls. Gideon Katonga down that left edge, Jermaine Hopgood at lock forward. Then on the interchange, Dylan Walker, Luca Moretti, Ryan Madison, and Matt Dory. Extended roster, the man that everyone's talking about, Joash Papali. We'll talk about him shortly too, getting all the fun. Joey Lussick, Tony Mattielli, Ronald Volkman, and Samuel Louisiu. And then I didn't have a chance to see this on Team List Tuesday because I hadn't announced it, but the match officials now have been ratified. It's Liam Kennedy, the main man, and Grant Atkins in the box. So I honestly don't know if there is a good combination you can get with the officials at the moment, but that's we have our gripes about Grant Atkins and his maybe non-biased bias for the Eels, but that's probably as close to neutral as you're going to get for the officials right now. I don't know.
I don't want to. I've been too disappointed this year, John. I just don't even want to talk about the officials.
Yeah, something that there is a serious discussion that needs to happen about the slipping standards of officiating because this isn't a Parramatta thing. If you watch any games in neutral, you'll be just like shaking your head, going, "How? Why? What? Like, where's the consistency? How did you reach that call? That's not even a rule." Like, there's a lot of that going on right now. But
and can I just say, John, and I didn't want to talk about it, but I just want to say, I'm not actually pointing the finger at the officials themselves. I'm pointing the finger at the system that they operate under, because I think the NRL,
the direction, the lack of resources, the week-to-week sort of crackdowns or directions that they're given that change how they're interpreting things that have been doing that way for years. I mean, no one's going to succeed in that sort of environment. And the officials are the endpoint that we as fans engage with and get angry at. But like you said, 60s, this is pointing towards a greater set of symptoms, they have the symptoms of a greater set of an issue at the heart of things.
Because where I want to give them a heads up is, like a acknowledgement is probably for as much as I will get upset with a missed call, and I'm talking about the live call that we see more often than not because we're covering lower grade and junior rep games. I've gone back and watched things on replay where I've gone, I don't know about that one. And probably 8-9 times out of 10, they're getting it right to give them credit for it. It's just that sometimes when there is a miss, it's a doozy. And but when it comes to the first grade, I think it's just confusion city. That's just, I think, as you said, the directives seem to change. There's clampdowns that happen. There's different interpretations that they're asked to manage out there on the field. They're concerned with managing the game and rather than officiating the game. And maybe that's just the way that it is, and it's never going to change from here on in. But I think it makes the job of a referee a very, very tough one. But anyway, that's probably all I want to say right now. Let's get on with talking about the game itself. John, you look at this Manly team, they haven't been too impacted by Origin, only losing DCE. In contrast, the Eels lose 2 players in Lomax and Moses. The other players for Manly who would have been a strong chance, of course, being Olakau'atu and Tommy Turbo. I think probably out of the two of them, it's probably Olakau'atu that's the unluckiest out of that. He's always a danger on that edge. Like he's just he's such a weapon, and we've seen as well that he's capable of skill plays as well as just the hard, tough football that he can play as well. A fast team. Manly's just a fast team, which we really have to do our best to counter. They've got a very good kicking game as well, and they're probably not going to lose too much with Jake Arthur being in there doing the kicking that DCE would normally do. Jake always had a very good kicking game with the Eels. It's something that he spends a lot of time working on. So where are the Eels going to win this? Well, obviously, people, if we get this one, people can't talk about the Eels just being a 1 or 2 player team in Moses and Lomax, because it's going to be a case of everyone doing exactly what they are required to do to get this result. We were competitive against Manly first time round without Moses. Dylan Brown at that time was struggling. He was just struggling. We've seen certainly a lot better version of Dylan since Mitch Moses has been back, but he was starting to find himself a bit before even Moses returned. I think he understands what his role is within the team. I don't see it changing this week with Dean Hawkins coming in, because Dean has a very good kicking game. I would, watching his kicking in New South Wales Cup, I think his long kicking games, maybe it's not quite at Mitch Moses' level, but it's very passable. It's very decent as a long kicking game. And he will do the halfback things. There's no expectation on Dylan to do the halfback things. And we've also had since then as well, because I don't think Dylan Walker played in that game against Manly earlier this year from memory. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong there,
Quick check
John.
Parramatta Eels versus Manly. Dylan Walker did not play.
Yes, so that's another big change. As I said, when you consider how competitive the Eels were against Manly at Manly's home ground there. So I think it's a matter of not even thinking about having Mitch Moses and Zach Lomax missing from the team. It's just a matter of every player nailing what they need to nail in this game. John, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, look, the big things we look at Manly is, as we always talk about them, the speed. Not so much Tommy T these days, who is still, he's not slow, but he's not the all-round athlete phenom that he once was. But Saab, Cooler, Garrick, Hopewadi, they've all got speed to burn. And while there is no DCE, they still have Brooks. And Jake, like you said, will do a solid job at halfback. And he can certainly put the kick up for the likes of Saab to contest in the red zone. So when I look at Manly, I look at that speed. I think that their pack might cause a few issues too, in the sense that they're the sort of pack that if they can get a roll on, they will take momentum of the game pretty strongly. So the Eels need to be rugged and competitive throughout the full 80 minutes. But if you look back to the Parramatta Eels and what their emphasis has to be internally, no Mitchell Moses, which means you can't, it sort of ties into what we're talking about with the Manly pack just then. You can't afford to be on the back foot in the arm wrestle through the middle, whereas Mitch Moses can salvage sets from inside the 40, the defensive 40, and get you back onto the opposition 25 even, and maybe 30 at worst with those phenomenal clearing kicks. Hawkins and Brown can't do the same. It's unfair to expect it of them, so you're requiring Williams, Barlaw, Moretti, Madison, Dury, Hopgood, all those middles and the outside backs that contribute earlier in the sets to get that foothold in the ruck, and I think that's going to be a point of emphasis for the Parramatta Eels. And then beyond that, in terms of the attacking play, we saw when we played this Eagles back in round 4, with no Mitchell Moses, we can trouble them. We had no Mitchell Moses, we had Dylan Brown in the fluctuating trough of form that he was in back then, and he was
in a funk.
He had a reasonable opening half in that game where he ran the ball, but it still wasn't. It was like he was forcing the issue to try and get back into gear in that game.
Yeah.
And it wasn't intuitive or natural or coming to him off the off the cuff, off the point of his mind there. He was just saying, I've got the ball, I've got to run. And while he did play better because of it, it didn't flow properly for him in the second half. So I look at that. Josh Adokar, I think he's going to be another key figure for the Parramatta Eels. He's really coming to his own now. Got that left wing position on lockdown, both as the flashy attacking star from the red zone, but from the midfield, he's certainly been very productive with those left-handed shifts. But equally, his ruck work has really stepped up in recent weeks. And I think that's been the more impressive part of it for me, 60s, is that we knew he would be a speed demon in some capacity, maybe not the full 100% speed that we're seeing when he was a little bit younger, but he's still very fast. But he has really owned that early tough work for the middle, breaking tackles and getting good post-contact meters in that regard. So, yeah.
What he's very good at, John, is communicating with the blokes inside.
And that's the thing you don't see
well.
on TV, is that he is an incessant talker in defense, helps organise that edge and attack. And while the halves will be the guys calling the shots in terms of what looks and shapes and little set pieces to use, he's the man that helps them stay in alignment and stay on time from the opposite side of that edge alignment.
He lets them know. He lets them know when something's on.
Yeah.
In terms of getting that ball to him,
grab a kick
where
at the ball
he'll
to
be.
him. Yeah.
Yep. He's. You can see that he's been instrumental in getting that slide defence more effective as well. The fact that there was only once that the Knights were able to get around the Eels last week, and it was right at the death, and it was they'd had a couple of set restarts, I think, but they had that little bit of glut at possession right at the end. They just got on the outside of Sean Russell, and that then allowed the overlap to happen. But that was like probably 78, 79 minutes of great defence from the Eels, and the system really working for them. It's going to be obviously a different kettle of fish, Manly compared to the Knights. The Knights are a rabble. The Knights are. You'd have to think they should be everyone's pick for the spoon at this
stage, surely. And building on that, what we learned from that game, what was curious against Newcastle was structurally in attack, we weren't using a lot of Mitchell Moses' strengths. He was the catcher, chasing kicks. He was the guy that was facilitating other people to play. And why that's pertinent this week is that with no Mitchell Moses, it's going to fall on the same guys that were calling the shots last week in those moments to make similar plays. Dylan Brown, Isaiah Yongi, Dean Hawkins, obviously. So maybe the Eels have I'm not going to say it was maybe planned out that way, but in a similar sense where you said that bringing Tony Mattelli into the team last week was an ideal opportunity to get a young man his first taste of NRL. Last week was also a great chance for the other playmakers and the other parts of the team to step up with Mitchell Moses in the team, but not being the dominant playmaker through some phases of that game, and that might put them in good stead this week. We mentioned, again, we speak about a lot of the fundamentals in the 101s. Yes, the pack has to be strong. Defensively, the Eels need to be good. The other one that I think I look at positional groups and see maybe we can have big games out of some players. I look at the edge forward 60s, and Gideon Katonga's been building. He's still far from the finished product, but I thought he was very good against Newcastle. He's starting to really identify and embrace his physicality and his ability to beat a defender with his strength and explosiveness. So I want to see more of that. And then Kelma Tuolangi, who's been out for a few weeks, it's not about repaying the team because he wasn't going out there to get suspended, but you would like to see him have a big game coming back, especially against his former club.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the interesting one is Jack Williams, who has been selected in the middle this week, but was just so damaging on the edge. You wonder whether he might become part of that rotation when it happens, and maybe he plays a little bit of both, a little bit of middle, a little bit of edge, because last week I think we saw for the first time this season the Eels forwards making statements in that game, and the second phase play that they generated, some of the bigger hits that came in during the game, it was I mean, it was a joy for us as Eels supporters to see the forwards have a bigger impact on what happened out on the field. Let's see some of the same this week. Let's see a good early start. Again, I'd like a late change. I'd like Luca starting again. I think Luca Moretti being there from the start of the game just brings that extra punch that we want to start games with. I'm sick and tired of starting behind the 8 ball in games, and
our record's pretty good when we have a lead. I'll tell you that. Just we don't have a lead very often.
That's it. So that'd be one change I'd like to have made, and it's not like Riles is without history of pulling some late changes this year. So who knows? That might come about, but I'd certainly like to see Lucas start in this game. John, time, I think, for us to get into our dips.
Yep.
What's your prediction for this game and your first try scorer, your best on field?
The Eels are obviously being far heavier impacted by Origin than the Sea Eagles. Yes, they're both lost halfbacks, but Zach Lomax is a big out for the Parramatta Eels. Going to make this contest difficult, 60s, and this is a result I could definitely see going to the Sea Eagles, even though both teams are below full strength. But you don't want to tip a Parramatta loss, so we're going to throw that one out there. Let's go with the Eels going back-to-back. A big win it would be too, regardless of the scoreline, getting that consecutive victory and climbing that much closer to the top 8, which is just, the ladder's absurd right now, 60s. The Dragons, I know that at the end of the round it changed by one position, but when the Dragons won against the Broncos last week, they climbed from 14th to 9th, and I think they finished the round in 10th. So on the back of one win, climbing the 5 ladder positions and being within touching distance of the 8 is ridiculous. So
John, where would the Eels be sitting if they had have got the wins they should have got against the Sharks and the Dolphins in consecutive weeks?
So
where would we be with 4 extra points?
With the 5 wins and the bye, the Eels would be, well, for and against would be the worst among those teams, but only not by that much. Jesus, the Rabbitohs got a bad for and against. We would be in 8th place right now.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's how quickly things can turn around. At some point, the teams in the top 8 will probably start to put a bit of a distance there. So you've got to get these wins, especially during the Origin period. So you've tipped an Eels win.
Yes.
What was your score?
Look, I would love to see a blowout, but between the conditions or the expected conditions and the fact that the Eels are missing their main orchestrator of all their offensive brilliance in Mitchell Moses, as well as a great finisher in Zach Lomax, let's be conservative. Just a 40. I mean, no, not a 40-point winner, but Eels to go in and get this done. Who's going to be our goal kicker here? 60, Sean Russell, I guess, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't inspire confidence in a big or comprehensive victory. So Parramatta, 5 tries, but 22, 24. 22.
So 1 goal. 5 tries, 1 goal.
To the Sea Eagles, 16, because we don't tend to score close to the post when Sean Russell's kicking, and the poor guy, even when he gets the throw over, sometimes he doesn't make a great fist of him. So 5 tries, 1 goal for the Eels, to the Sea Eagles, 16 there.
Sean Russell was a gun goal kicker.
He was, and I think you spoke to Andrew Johns at the time. Who was it? Andrew Johns, or was it Anthony Fields? I can't remember. Someone described him as the best pure goal kicker they'd seen in years. And
I think that might have been Fieldsy. Andrew Johns spoke quite a bit about Sean Russell's skill set.
Yes.
Back when he was there, and Sean was only just coming up out of, the Pathways football, but he got to spend a little bit of time with Sean and was highly impressed with him. So look, it was funny that you're thinking that way, because I was thinking a score of 22-18, except I was thinking 4 tries, 3 goals, whereas the Sea Eagles kicking all of their conversions. So I'm thinking around that 22-18 mark. I think it's going to be uncomfortably close. But I think that's just the nature of the conditions that they'll play in, and the fact that the Seagulls are a strong team. So we'll be doing well to win the game. I believe that we will win the game, but everyone will have to play to the best of their ability in this one. And I'm looking for them to have got some real positivity out of this. John, my tip for first try scorer in this game, I'll go with Kelmer on an edge to be first try scorer for the Eels. And as far as best on field by the end of the game, let's go with Isaiah Iongi having a big game from fullback. Yourself?
First try scorer in terms of the starting team as announced, I will go with the Ibis, Jordan Samrani, out in the centres. But if that pre-game change happens that you want in Luca Moretti getting a start, have him as the smoky to score first. I don't know if there's a male there 60s or if you're just been pining for the impact that Luca brings, but if he does start, I'll get on the big man there. Best on field, the Parramatta Eels. A lot of regular candidates we could go for. You've gone Isaiah. Junior jumps out as another great candidate. Let's go real out there, Gideon Katonga. Maybe you'll have a very good game for the Parramatta Eels down that left edge.
Sounds good, John. Okay, that brings us to the end of our preview. Thank you to everyone. And no matter what platform you're either listening or watching this on, if you could give it a like and subscribe. Thank you to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, and of course, Parramatta Leagues Club, the home of the Eels. Don't forget the two events that are happening around the Eels with their Legends long lunch, and also with the away match event against the Panthers. We will, of course, see you there live, 5:30, Sterlo's in Parramatta Leagues Club on Friday. So please come in there, catch up with us speaking with Stephen Edge, not only grabbing anecdotes from Stephen, but previewing the big game. And John, as I always say, go you mighty Eels.